Is everyone in Utah a Mormon? Is everyone in Utah a member of the LDS? Seriously, is everyone in Utah Mormon? We're going to answer those questions and a whole lot more. So get out your mountain bikes and your BOMs. We're going to unbox the state of Utah. Oh, a Mormon Church, or a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This is a very important part of Utah's culture, but it's also very private. Like if you're not Mormon, you can't go inside. But Mormons say it's not about secret, it's about sacred. The Mormon Church is a mystery to a lot of people and a very uniquely American religion. Members of the Mormon faith are aware that they are sometimes seen as a source of mystery and suspicion. The membership numbers for the LDS are shrinking, and today, about 1.7% of America's population is Mormon. That's about the same number as the Jewish population. Yes, it's true that Mormons have a big influence on the politics and everything else in the state, but the whole state isn't Mormon. Sorta. In order to get a well-rounded view of the state of Utah, we need to get out of the church and out of the home and head out into the rest of the state and see what else is going on. Only then can we truly know what it's like to live in Utah. This is Utah. As you'll see, most of the population is in the Salt Lake City metro area, and that area is growing super fast. There's also a lot of other stuff going on in Utah though, especially when it comes to exploring the outdoors. Utah's a very interesting state, and there's something different around every corner. We're going to begin here in southwest Utah. Now, southern Utah is one of the prettiest, if not the prettiest, part of Utah. Right here along the Arizona border are many of Utah's national parks, little touristy towns, and St. George. St. George is actually a pretty decent sized city at about 85,000 and growing pretty fast. A lot of Utah folks go down to St. George a couple times a year, especially in the winter. It's sort of an artsy place and very brown and hot. You could say it's a lot of Mormons and old people, and a lot of snowbirds have second homes here, so the pace of life is really slow. It has a cute downtown area and sits at the base of the Red Cliffs Desert Reserve. Look at this picture. It's a great place for people on a fixed retirement income, where you can get a home for about $375K. The little teeny town of Hilldale, along the Arizona border, is the polygamy capital of the world. If you don't know what polygamy is, it's when a man has many wives, or, less likely, when a wife has many husbands. It's pretty much outlawed these days, but in Utah, it's a minor ticket, if you can believe it. Polygamy isn't a big deal in the USA, but if you looked up where the polygamy communities are in the US, most are in Utah. But not everybody here has a sister wife. Come on now.
I wish I had many wives.
Mappy, you're married to Karen, and you have 4 kids already. How many more wives and kids do you need?
You better not get another wife. I'll cut you.
Karen, that's actually pretty funny. I couldn't imagine Mappy with more than one wife, though. He definitely wouldn't be the man of the house, I'll tell you that. He's such a wimp. Most of southern Utah, especially south central, is dominated by smallish towns and cities, anywhere between a couple hundred people and a few thousand people. And this is also where you'll find many of Utah's recognizable national parks. Zion National Park is here, not too far from St. George. This is sometimes considered the crown jewel of Utah's 5 iconic national parks. There's a bunch of really pretty rocks and canyons here. Springdale's a little community here that's all artsy and snobby. Then you have Bryce Canyon National Park, which has a bunch of tall rock formations. Bryce Canyon City, or Bryce, is here. It's also a teeny place of a couple hundred people and more tourist trap stuff. Next to that's the Grand Staircase Escalante, which has more rugged cliffs and terraces, and these slot canyons that are really cool but can be kind of dangerous. And then you have the Canyonlands National Park, which has more canyons, mesas, and buttes. There's more slot canyons here too. This is where that hiker guy got stuck back in 2003. He spent 6 days wedged under a boulder before he had to cut his own arm off to get away. Can you imagine? It seems like the whole part of southern Utah is one big series of canyons and rock formations. Kinda is. You should see them, and you can see why so many people are into the outdoors in Utah. Also of note here is Lake Powell, where a lot of people in Utah do their boating. Utah's very proud of its national parks, especially because they have so many for a state of their size and population. And while it's pretty in so many areas, it's counterbalanced by a lot of drab, beige nothingness in most of the state too. It's kind of ironic that Utah has a reputation for beauty now, because part of the motivation for the Mormon pioneers to settle here is that it was so ugly they didn't think anyone would bother to run them out of the area. Down here is southeast Utah. There really isn't much here. The Four Corners National Monuments here where Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico meet. There's some small towns with hippies and farmers and self-reliant mountain folk down there. Many of the smaller towns in Utah and on the fringes of society are teeny and a little poor. There's some trailer parks sprinkled in too. Central Utah is a lot more small towns and forests and more canyon type stuff. And that's far different than over here in eastern Utah, which has its own culture. Moab's here. Everyone's heard of Moab. It's an artsy town outside of Arches National Park where you can see all the pretty rock formations you've seen in pictures. Moab has an interesting mix of snobs and free-spirited hippie folk. A lot of the people go there to mountain bike and to hike and hang out. Moab's growing fast. There's a bunch of new condos and other buildings going up all over. Word's out about how great Utah is, I tell you, but more on that later. Also in eastern Utah is Vernal, which is an oil town. You may not know it, but Utah ranks 10th in the nation for oil production. A lot of the oil sands here in eastern Utah are a big source of income for the blue-collar workers in this state. And no, oil does not come from dinosaurs. That's a myth. But there are a ton of dinosaur fossils in northeast Utah. In fact, there's a dinosaur national monument here where people dig up dinosaur bones all the time. And by people, I mean paleontologists, not just anyone. A big chunk of eastern Utah is also home to the largest Native American reservation in the state, called the Uinta and Ouray Reservation. Many of the communities here are neglected and poor and don't have casinos. There isn't a casino in the entire state of Utah, so Utahns need to drive into other states to get their gambling fix on, like over here in western Utah. Wendover is a small city on the Nevada border where Utah people drive to throw their money away. Along the Utah-Nevada state line are several casinos which are happy to take their money, thank you very much. Vegas is also a big destination for Utah folks as well, which might surprise some people given the religious demographic and Vegas's reputation. To get good food and to see the seedier part of life, you kind of have to go to Vegas, since Utah is pretty bland culturally. There's some decent Mexican food in Utah, but most people here eat good old-fashioned cheeseburgers, fries, and shakes. Utah is also very proud of inventing fry sauce, which is just mayo and ketchup mixed. I know, not very exciting. They put it on their burgers and fries. Utah was also home to the first KFC franchise, but three really important food groups here are casseroles, funeral potatoes, and Jell-O. Funeral potatoes are basically a potato-based casserole that people serve at, well, funerals. And Jell-O is huge in Utah. They love Jell-O with shredded vegetables or fruit chunks in it. It looks gross and kinda is gross. Green or lime Jell-O is a big deal here. And Jell-O is actually the official state snack. Jell-O is such a big deal here in Utah that the official Olympic pin from 2002 was a bowl of green Jell-O. But a lot of western Utah is dominated by desert and really flat landscape. The salt flats are way out this way. It's so wide open and flat in western Utah that people just take their cars out there and drive as fast as they can. The world land speed record was set here when somebody went 142 miles an hour. Now that's nothing, but back in 1914 it was a big deal. Today, the land speed record is 760 miles an hour, and that was set in a nearby Nevada desert. Now we're going to move over here to northern Utah, which is much less desert and more mountains and trees and farming. Up here in the Cache Valley, you'll find Logan and its surrounding suburbs. Logan is where Utah State University is. It's an agriculture school, so there's a lot of farms up this way. They make a lot of milk and cheese up here. Winters are cold up here. There's a lot of college kids and hippie rock climbers around these parts. This is also an area that's growing quickly, but still nothing like we'll see in the Salt Lake City metro area soon. Also up here in northern Utah are Rich and Morgan counties, which are 80% Mormon. Or at least 80% of people up here are members of the LDS Church. I suppose this is as good a time as any to talk about the Mormon influence in Utah. 2.1 million of Utah's 3.2 million people are considered members of the Mormon Church. But that number might be misleading. Not all of them are active. They're just listed in the records. And people who aren't active in the church often find it's difficult to get their names removed from church records. It's estimated that about 40% of Mormons in Utah are active, and there are various shades of active. Back in the day in Utah, it was pretty black or white. You were either Mormon or you were not. Now, today, there's a lot of gray area. A lot of the younger generation is sort of not really involved and more progressive, and that's causing some ruffles among the active LDS community. It's not so much a religious concern, it's a political one. All these newcomers come into a state, and many of the younger people who are not following the Book of Mormon to a T, they're diluting the Mormon political influence. Liberalism and socialism is chipping away at Utah's traditional Republican Mormon viewpoint. In Utah, religion's a big deal, but you could say the real God here is the GOP. Almost any member of the church will put the Republican Party over their church values any day of the week, except Sunday. But the LDS Church still has great influence over Utah politics, hence the term the Utah Legislature. For example, the state has strict liquor laws, though those are loosening nowadays. And the more active Mormons you have, the more political influence you have. Currently, Utah's the fastest growing state, but only about a third of the population growth is because of an influx of outsiders. Much of the growth here is because of a high birth rate. Utah has the nation's second highest birth rate of all. Mormon families have 3.4 kids per family, which is far higher than the national average of 2.1 kids per household. It's not uncommon for 5-year-old Mormon kids to be uncles and aunts. But all the Mormonism and the conservative values make for a healthy population. The lack of drinking and smoking makes for a very healthy community. Now we come to the Salt Lake City metro area. This part of the state can be broken up into the Wasatch Front and the Wasatch Back. They're separated by the Wasatch Mountains, or mountains, as Utah people say. The Wasatch Back area is here and composed of snobby areas like Park City, Heber City, Midway, and Morgan. This area is also growing fast. Much of the region is where the wealthy people ski or have second homes, especially celebrities and athletes. This is where they host the Sundance Film Festival. You likely can't afford it, but the skiing's great. Utah has 14 ski resorts total, and almost all of them are somewhere in the Wasatch Mountains. Then you cross back over to the western side of the Wasatch Front. Now this whole area here, from basically Brigham City all the way down to like Santaquin along the I-15 and at the base of the mountains, is the Wasatch Front. Many of the communities are smallish and kind of blend in with one another. They're just kind of small towns with little main streets and sprawling suburbs. This whole front is where most of the population growth in Utah has taken place. What was once wide open spaces here is now being taken up by condos and home communities and strip malls. And whatever land is left here between the lakes and the mountains, it's being developed quickly. If you move to the Wasatch Front, you're going to need a car, since the only real public transportation's in Salt Lake City proper. 80% of Utah's population's here, and all that growth has brought in all the problems that other metro areas have seen for decades that Utah had been immune to. You know, smog, traffic, homelessness, drug abuse, and crime. In fact, Salt Lake City is in the top 5 in the nation for property crimes, and it's in the top 10 for drug use. You probably didn't know that. A lot of the property thefts in SLC are to get money for drugs. In terms of violent crime, though, there isn't much of that here, except in places like South Salt Lake, West Valley City, and Kearns. If you moved here, it's not going to be cheap anymore, and good luck finding a home without a bidding war. Lots of the people moving here are from other western states like California, people who are sick of the liberal BS ruining their states. In terms of cities that are noteworthy here, Ogden, up here, is one of the worst for crime and poverty, but it's improving now. It was pretty run down for a while, but it's getting better. Farmington's been called one of the best places in the state to live. It's super safe and the schools are good. We mentioned South Salt Lake and the surrounding area here. Odds are if there's a kidnapping or a murder in this part of the state, it's going to be in this general area. Do not move to South Salt Lake or nearby areas. You're going to regret it. Salt Lake City might feel like a big city for Utah, but it's really just a mid-sized city. There's only about 200,000 people here, and there's not much more room to grow in this city proper. It's the most diverse part of the state, and probably more liberal than you thought it would be. It's actually been called the most gay-friendly city in the country, people. We mentioned how property crimes and drug use is on the rise in Salt Lake City. Homelessness is a big problem now. They're working to clean up the homeless camps and spending money on homeless resource centers, but the problem isn't going away. It's becoming almost uncontrollable, said one Salt Lake City councilman not too long ago. And just 6 years ago, the city had proclaimed it had all but eradicated its homeless problem. As Salt Lake City's learning, though, that problem is very hard to solve. Conversely, on the northeast part of Salt Lake City is where all the rich people live. Areas like Arlington Hills and the Avenues over by the University of Utah are where a lot of the 1% live. The Avenues is all cute, small, antique-looking homes where all the rich show-offs want to live. Sugar House is also a ritzy part of the Salt Lake City area. Sandy and Draper down here are also very wealthy areas, as are places over here like Alpine, Highland, and Cedar Hills. Eagle Mountain is also a very quickly growing upper-class type area. As you leave Salt Lake City, you come into what's called Utah Valley. The culture here is far different than in Salt Lake City proper. Lehi is the new tech hub of the state. Lots of tech companies are moving here, so they call it the Silicon Slopes because it's near the mountains. This is a good place for young, up-and-coming tech nerds. Down here in the Utah Valley, cities like Provo and Orem are very Mormon. A majority of the people here are active LDS members. I mean, this is home to Brigham Young University. If you move to Provo or Orem, the first question you're going to be asked by your new neighbors is, are you Mormon? Not, are you from California, or do you like basketball, or what's your favorite color? It's, are you Mormon? This part of the Utah Valley is safe and a great place to raise a family. The state's music scene is anchored in Provo, Orem. Down here south of that are nice communities like Mapleton, Salem, Payson, West Mountain, and Spanish Fork. It's more rural down there. There's a lot of rednecky people and farms. And then there's the lakes. The Great Salt Lake and the much smaller Utah Lake are defining characteristics of the Wasatch Front. Both are really pretty to look at, but they smell bad and have a lot of algae and bugs and shrimp. If you move here, go swimming in them once, and it'll probably be the last time you do that. There aren't really any large, terrible areas along the Wasatch Front. Some cities here have good and bad neighborhoods, though. While to Utah, South Salt Lake, West Valley City, and Kearns and Ogden are worse off. If you compared them to America's real ghettos, they would be considered nice. The weather here in the Wasatch Front's actually quite pleasant. A lot of sun, some snow, but no real brutal snowfalls. Overall, Utah has a lot of things going for it. It's the fastest growing state for a reason. There's bright sunshine, beautiful scenery, a good economy, pretty good schools, and not a lot of violence. The income equality across households is better here than in most states. Utah's really not a state of have and have-nots. Utah people are very nice and kind. They're very welcoming and generous. But as this state grows and home prices skyrocket and the crime ticks up and the pollution increases, they have to figure out how to manage all that. And as the traditionally strong Mormon influence wanes, it'll be hard for Utah to remain the same. People here are less concerned about the shift in religious tone than they are the impending growth of liberalism and socialism. Utah folks tend to either love it or hate it here. A lot of people complain about the state's politics or the odd, sometimes ostracizing culture, and yet don't up and leave or become active in the community to do something about it. A large part of the population here are just complainers who also refuse to be the change they wish to see in the world. But at the end of the day, deep down, they love Utah and are proud to call Utah home. Okay, so we did a pretty good job of unboxing the state of Utah, didn't we? Yes, we did. And we could have talked about a lot of other stuff too. Like, we didn't have time to talk about the Uinta Mountains. How did we not talk about the Uinta Mountains? Nor did we have time to talk about how everybody in Utah loves basketball. And we didn't talk about the Holy War rivalry between BYU and University of Utah. But we got to go. I think I smell the Jell-O cooking, and I want to go and dig into a big old pile of that stuff now. Utah, Utah, you are so red and blue. Mormons lived here since 1842. There are a lot of mountains and a big nasty lake. If you moved here from other states, it won't be a mistake. Just add water, 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 gel. Ho. It's so pretty, it's so gooey, gel. Low. You can eat it at a funeral, J. J-E-L-L-O, you know it, J-E-L-L-O, you know it, J-E-L-L-O, you know it, J-E-L-L-O, you know it, gel. Oh, it's so jiggly, it's so shaky, gel. Low. With pineapple, it's so fragile, J. J-E-L-L-O, you know it, 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 gel. Low. With some carrots and with some walnuts, gel. Low. Utah loves you, Utah loves it. The And now it's also cheesecake too. Special thanks to Kathy and Austin, who were a huge help in making this video. You guys are totally awesome. Hey guys, if you learned something new about America or what it's like to live in America, great. You should think about subscribing and turning on your notifications. You can also click one of these videos or playlists for more. You can also now buy my songs on iTunes and other formats. Click the link in the description. Thanks for watching. And remember, while we all might have different views, we should all be nice to each other and try to make the U.S. a better place in a positive way.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.
So, like, politically, economically, culturally, are people in Utah concerned? Are they excited? How do they feel about the near future of Utah?
Right now, there's an economic boom. We're becoming, unfortunately, the next Silicon Valley. They call it Silicon Slopes. It's a tech hub for a lot of people, so it's expanding rapidly. Our house that we bought just 5 years ago has doubled in value. Just in the few years we've lived here in West Jordan. It's become really crowded up here. Traffic is a nightmare. Everything... Utah's economy is really historically stable. So I think a lot of people during the pandemic have seen that and they're like, I want a piece of stability. I don't want to be in this chaos that's going on in the rest of the world. Utah is very conservative. There's a few areas in Utah that are more liberal, but overall it is extremely conservative.
Yeah. So are people worried that liberal is coming?
No. I think a lot of Utahns are just open-minded. They're like, whatever. If you want to come. Whatever. We don't care. I don't see anybody like saying, oh, no, you're not invited. You're not welcome. I don't see a lot of discrimination based on political affiliation or anything else like that around. I don't see it in my kids that I teach. So it might be out there, but I'm not aware of it.
Yeah.
At least
Well,
in my corner.
yeah. Well, it's good that you're open-minded because it's coming.
Oh no. Oh no, that's not good.
I mean, you're the flavor of the year or the decade or however long it's going to go. I mean, everyone's going to Idaho, Montana, Utah, Arizona, most Colorado. That's where, or down to the south where I am, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee. Those are where the migration patterns are happening. And, I hear about how Utah's battling with homeless and drug abuse and crime and pollution more than it's seen. I mean, Salt Lake City's been immune to all of the problems that big cities have had, and now it's coming to your area. So it's good that you're open-minded. So you guys have a good positive outlook about it.
Yeah, there are problems with drugs and there are problems with homelessness. Most of that's in downtown Salt Lake area, but they actually closed down the homeless shelter to rebuild a newer one that would triple the capacity for the homeless beds, so we have fewer people sleeping on the streets and also spreading them out throughout the valley. So there's one big homeless facility that they're building here, and that one's for the single men. There is a family homeless shelter, and that one think I don't know how many beds that has, but it houses quite a few families. And then they're working to build apartments that are lower income to help kind of ease the burden. Because right now I heard there was a 2-year wait for low income housing just to even get in.
Yeah, it's like that across the country with low income housing and affordability, and it's crazy. So are you a member of the church?
Of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I hear that the LDS population is peaked and it's not as big as it was, that the younger generation is sort of not as into it and being active as they were in the previous generation. These millennials decide to do whatever they want to do. Have you noticed that? Is that a thing? Is that true or is that not true?
It depends. It depends on the area that you're in. There are a lot of people that are coming in from different areas and with different religious views, and they're welcome. I haven't. Um, the church has always been open-minded towards other people and other views and other religions. If you follow the principles of the church, it says to treat others with kindness and with love and openness and respect. And I try to follow that as best as I can. Um, I know not everybody else does. I know that that's kind of the exception, but I feel I feel like there are some that are very strong in the church, and there are some that are not. I think the pandemic has changed the perspective for a lot of people, and especially with the changes in the last year, going towards a home-centered, church-supported religion. And the focus has been more on teaching at home, and then Sunday services are to support that, so
Hmm.
that it puts the emphasis more on family and more on the parents to educate their children as far as what they need to know.
Yeah. That's interesting. I also hear that the from somebody who's part of the church that when it comes to religion versus politics, that most of the Mormon community would rather pick GOP over church values, except on Sundays, and that the church is has a big influence on the state. But like as things change, they're not so worried about the religious change, but the political change in the state. It did I get that wrong, or is there some truth to that at all?
The church has always had a perspective that church and politics are separate. So it you vote for who you feel in your heart is the best to represent you. I don't tend to vote for the GOP. I tend to vote more broadly. I look at the political past, the voting history that a person has, as well as their core values. And that's who I tend to vote for. And I don't just vote straight party. And the people
Mhm,
that I know and associate with are the same way. They won't vote just straight party. They're going to vote based on what they feel is going to be best for Utah.
mhm.
So I don't know about the right wing GOP group. I don't really affiliate with them. I tend to be more moderate.
Mhm. Yeah. If you had to pick one pro and one con about living in the Wasatch Front area for people that are thinking about moving to Utah, what would be the one biggest pro and the one biggest con about moving to your area?
That's a tricky one because I'm not a city girl. I'm a country girl that moved to the city because my son needed opportunities up here in the city. So,
Okay.
probably the pro would be the opportunities because he is a soccer star, and that's what he loves. He loves soccer. He wants to go pro. I couldn't have that opportunity in a rural area. One of the cons is traffic, and with that, the air pollution. That it's here. We get air pollution in the summer, we get air pollution in the winter because we sit in a valley between two mountains.
Yeah. Yeah, so the pro would be it's a growing area with a lot of opportunity in the Salt Lake City metro, but the con is also it's a growing area where you get all the stuff that comes with being a growing area. So I guess
Yes.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And home prices are just, I mean, there's not a lot of room for people to grow, right? I mean, you're wedged between the mountains and the lake, and you've got desert. So like as people flood to that area, there really isn't a lot of room to grow, right? From what I hear.
There is, but you have to go further and further up the West Bench. And I live on the West Bench. Like literally a block and a half from my house is 117 acres that there have been pronghorn antelope historically. Last year they plopped in an elementary in the middle of it, and now that 117 acres is up for sale. And they have zoned it for high density and ultra high density housing. So they're going to be putting in condos and apartments, and they said they were building up to 1,000 units, I think, plus a senior center complex. So
Yeah.
the antelope will be gone, unfortunately. And yeah, it just keeps expanding and growing, and the wild spaces are no longer wild.
Yeah. It's like that everywhere in this country. Not everywhere, but a lot of places.
Yeah.
Um, so one final question, Jello. I don't know if Jello is as big of a thing as the stereotype is. Does everybody eat Jello, or is that like overhyped?
I think it's overhyped. I think that was really popular in the 1980s. I grew up with green jello with shredded carrots in it in my school lunch.
It's just so gross.
But yeah, I don't see jello very often anymore. I really don't see much in the way of jello salads. It's gone more towards cheesecakes.
Cheesecakes. Okay, so
Raspberry
cheesecake
cheesecake
is
pretzel salad. Yes, that's the
che-
one right now.